Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm chatting with Steve Stairs from Benton Resources. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Benton Resources, you may want to hop on their website or just even watch this interview and hear about some of the drill results that the company's been coming up with. Now, often when we have guests on, we may get a little bit excited and hopeful, but in this case here, these are some of the most impressive drill results I've seen for a copper explorer in Canada. And I think that it definitely merits a lot of interest. And that's exactly what's happening. In a lot of the small cap circles that I chat with in WhatsApp chat groups or just talking with people when I'm out for lunch, people often mention the ticker symbol BEX and they say, wow, have you seen the results these guys have been putting out? Now, if you've been following our channel, you know that we actually had Spruce Ridge on 3 years ago, who at the time was operating the Great Burnt Project, which is the one we're talking about here. At the time, they were putting out some pretty strong copper results, but nobody seemed to care that much. I think that the assumption at the time was that there just wasn't enough tonnage or the resource just wasn't large enough to actually merit it being economic and people wanting to put in big money into the project. Now along comes the Stairs brothers. They are really well known for a whole bunch of discoveries and, quite frankly, really well respected in the junior mining world, particularly for Newfoundland. So in this interview, I chat with Steve and he tells me that he believes that there's a heck of a lot more copper than what you're seeing on that current resource estimate. So guys, if you have been following the story loosely and you wanted more information, hopefully this interview is going to give you guys some color on why I'm excited about the project. I'm not long, they're not a client. I just really think that this is an interesting story and it's one that could really catch fire in 2024. So I'm excited to bring you guys this interview. All right, everyone, enjoy the show. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Steve, for having me.
So, Steve, this is the first time we've had you on here. I've got to start with the beginning. I've heard your name around in junior mining circles before in the past. Benton Resources, we're excited to have you on here because it's one of the few names that there seems to be interest in. Some pretty big copper grades being reported out of the property that you guys have. Perhaps we could just start with a little bit of a background on how you got into junior mining, what excites you about being here, and then we can maybe get into what's happening with Benton Resources.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I came from a long line of prospectors. My grandfather was a prospector. My great-grandfather, who was a Micmac Indian, he was a trapper, but he didn't know it at the time. He collected rocks, and always told my grandfather about this silver mine that he had found in Newfoundland. So back in the 60s, my Noranda opened an office in Newfoundland for the first time, and my grandfather and uncle went looking for a job. So they hired them, even though they had no experience, and sent them out into the bush. And lo and behold, they came back with very interesting massive sulfide showings. They discovered several deposits in Newfoundland. And, from there, my uncles, my dad, pretty much the whole family got involved in the exploration business. 2004, we started Benton. Prior to that, I worked for Noranda for 7 years as a young lad, 17 years old, coming out of high school. Worked for them for 7 years. And then we started Benton in 2004. And from that moment forward, we created several publicly traded companies, myself and my brothers, and my cousin, Kevin Keats, who's also, again, part of the big family, the Keats zone in Newfoundland that Newfound Gold has discovered.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, so that's my uncle and my first cousin.
Okay.
So, yeah, long history of exploration. There's a ton of us that do it for a living. And we picked up this Great Burnt Copper project. I knew John Ryan pretty well at Spruce Ridge Resources. They had a change in management. It was an opportunity that I thought they might not want to be in Newfoundland because the new CEO, Steve Balch, is a nickel guy. So I approached him and he optioned the project to us, and now we've had some great success.
And Spruce Ridge is also kind of interesting because they've spun out a few companies, or been the sort of project generator, however you want to look at it, for a few junior mining companies that have gone on to some tremendous success, right? Like we got Canada Nickel, for example. That was just a spin out. I owned shares of Spruce Ridge at the time, and now when I look at my account, it's like, oh yeah, I own Canada Nickel just from owning this little tiny nano cap that just all of a sudden creates this like $100 million plus nickel company by just spinning it out. And I always find it fascinating when we see those stories happen. And I know Spruce Ridge back then, their baby was the Great Burnt Project, which you guys now have. So maybe we can get into that a little bit. I look at the Great Burnt Project, and my take on it is we've got these tremendous sexy grades, right? Like you're hitting what's it, like 7% copper, and here, you know, a lot of these other copper projects we're seeing, they're hitting like 0.4%, and everybody's excited. Now, obviously, we're talking about very different geology, but the question when I did my homework on Great Burnt years ago, was, is it why isn't there that much love for this? And the answer I'd often get is that there's just not enough resource there. Walk me through why you think that there is. And I know that we can't get too forward looking here without getting in trouble, but if you have a sense of how much more strike you think actually is there to really expand the size of the property.
Yeah, well, first off, Newfoundland has not been known for gigantic deposits, although to the north of us is the Buckins Belt that had, more than 40, 50 million tons of high-grade VMS back in the 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that was mined out. Benton Resources, which was owned by Teck, was around 6 million tons at 3.5% copper. So there's sizable deposits there. And now, of course, Rambler Metals up in the Bay Vert Belt, which started out at a million or 2 ton of high-grade copper with a little bit of gold, is now looking at 30 to 40 million tons at 2% copper. So these deposits do exist. There's just not been a lot of deep drilling in Newfoundland. I mean, this is also indicative of the gold plays such as Newfound Gold now, outlining millions of ounces of gold, although they've not calculated any resources, but you can certainly see that that's coming. So I think these deposits are on the island and previously were only tested at very shallow depths. And the other thing that happened, especially in the Great Burnt deposit, is the previous operators, most of the drilling was done in the 70s, and it was done with AQ core, which is only the size of your baby finger. And of course, when you're drilling standard drilling and deep holes, they had no control over the azimuth of where these holes went once they got into, if they hit any shear zones, the azimuth of the drill hole would change. So we believe, especially in the deeper drilling, they didn't, actually test the zone at depth. And we've proven this now by drilling some holes in areas where they had 0 in drilling, and we've hit 12 meters of massive sulfide. So we're pretty excited that this thing is wide open down plunge, and we're hitting really high grades.
Now, apologies for my ignorance to geology. I am still getting up to speed on it, but could there be a porphyry property here, or is that sort of different than massive sulfides or semi-massive sulfides?
Yeah, no, this is a volcanic massive sulfide system. It's been labeled by, various geologists that's done work on it as a Beshi type, which is the big deposit in Japan. It was mined for 200 or 300 years, I think, over time, and so they can be quite large, the Beshi type deposits, and we have 15 kilometers of Beshi type stratigraphy, meaning it's a mafic sediment host to the volcanism of the system. So we've got zones to the north, 15 kilometers away, that run. We've just completed trenching with 5.5% copper and up to 6 grams gold. So it's a really, polymetallic. There's good cobalt in it as well, up to 0.1% cobalt in the higher grade copper sections. But overall, good recoverable cobalt and also good recoverable silver. So the system can host, gigantic size, world-class type deposits. And certainly the grade that we're hitting are world-class type grades. I remember back in 1980, 2001, there was a company called VMS Resources. They hit a large VMS system in Manitoba called Reed Brook. And Hudbay, within a year or so had taken the deposit out and mined it within 4 or 5 years. I think they had like 2.5 million tons at 4% copper, just because of the grade Hudbay wanted to mine it. So these things are highly, attractive. Grade cures grade cures everything, because you can take high grade and mine it in a low, in a low copper price environment if it comes.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, you've got a massive amount of strike length here, you think, to continue to go explore. And what we see right now, if we actually look at that resource that does exist on the website or the investor deck, it's not actually indicative of really anything other than the fact that this is what it could look like, but think of it as being potentially a lot bigger if you continue to hit strike.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, the Rambler mine, for instance, was in production up in Bayvert, periodically from the 70s all the way up to now. And, it was a tiny mine. They only mine 1,000 to 1,200 tons of rock per day, which was way too small for the size of the deposit they have now. I mean, it would take them 150 or 160 years to mine it. So, that project was worked over and over again by mid-tier companies, big companies such as Teck and Noranda. And, they didn't find the big ore body until a couple of years ago when Rambler was actually in production. So now, now they have this huge 30, 40 million ton deposit coming together. And, previously it was thought to be a tiny deposit. So this is the type of thing and opportunity that's in Newfoundland. And I believe this is the type of thing and opportunity we have at Great Burnt. I'm not saying, whatever the creator gave us is what we're going to get, but the opportunity is certainly there. And it is certainly, from our point of view now, and the drill holes we put in at depth is wide open at depth.
And I don't want to really make too much comment about the previous management team that was working on this property, but I feel like there wasn't a huge appetite for risk to step out a lot further and sort of dilute the company to go and take this big shot. But it sounds like you guys are prepared to go and raise some big money. You already have with Eric Sprott involved, and step out and go deeper and see if, hey, this is a lot bigger than what's on paper.
Yeah. So absolutely. So February is D-Day for the next phase of drilling, down plunge and a line strike to develop this into a bigger resource. Previously it was 1.2 million tons. We think that's irrelevant. We think the grades are much higher than previously announced. Just from
I think they're higher.
Oh, they're much higher.
Wow.
So we can't prove that until we do a 43-101. So it's hard to say it until we do that. But we think it's way too early to even consider that, given the amount of drilling we have to do, and actually given the amount of drill holes that we have to do next to the old historical holes to prove that the grades are higher and the thicknesses are better than previously reported. For whatever reason, they either grind it the core away with a small core and washed it away down, which happened lots back in those days. So we got a lot of work to do, but this project is the best project I've ever worked on in my career. And I've drilled a lot of holes. And I've hit some wonderful intercepts that, that follow-up drilling always was mediocre or you couldn't chase it. But this thing, we're hitting it and we're chasing it. So that's the first step.
You're getting me excited here. So just so I understand, how many or how many holes are we looking at? What's the size of the drill program that you guys are working on right now, and how far are you guys stepping out from the what's been already drilled?
Yeah, so far I think we got about a 600-meter strike length on the zone, maybe 700, and that outlines a nice high grade core of the deposit all the way down to 600 meters in strike. And because it plunges at about 30 degrees, the deepest hole so far is around 320 meters where we hit it. So of course, again, just comparing to Rambler Metals, their new deposit that's parallel to the one that they were mining don't start until it's 400 meters down. So it just goes to show you this, how good these systems can be, especially when they're rich like this. We believe this thing could go for kilometers, but we don't know that. So the next phase will be at least take it down another 200 meters down plunge. And that will add substantial tons and grade, hopefully grade, but and hopefully tons, but that should add substantial grade and tons to the deposit. And then of course that don't account for the whole stratigraphy where there's 5 other known zones, that's got historic previous drilling in it with good grades, just needs, again, a lot of work. So in my estimates, just talking to the guys, just to get us started, we'll need 40 to 50,000 meters of drilling, within the next 12 to 24 months.
You guys also have a bit of a lithium project going on that it sounds like that's going to be sort of spun out into its own entity. You guys are involved with effectively a major lithium company now. What can you tell us about what's happening there?
Yeah, so 2 things actually. Benton actually owns 24.6 million shares of a company called Clean Air Metals that was spun out of Benton about 3 years ago. It has just under 2 million ounces of platinum palladium equivalent just north of Thunder Bay, one of the highest grade platinum palladium projects in North America right now, outside of any producing mine. And it's just south of the Lac des Îles palladium mine. And we own a 0.5% royalty on that project. So right now that stock is trading at 5 to 6 cents. And but it's extremely advanced. It's got I think a PEA done on it, or a PEA being worked on. And then of course we've in the last couple of years have discovered a lithium zone in central or south central Newfoundland, and that lithium project has now got 60 drill holes into it. It was discovered by Sokoman in Benton, Sokoman Minerals in Benton. We found it in 2021, late 2021. And as of now, we've drilled 60 drill holes, and we have about 60 kilometers of stratigraphy that's highly prospective in new discoveries. About 30 kilometers of that has been soil geochemmed with very high lithium in soils, indicating, a really robust system. And we've also discovered the first high-grade cesium in Newfoundland. I think we've had grades up to 11% cesium, which is also associated with lithium deposits, such as the Tanko mine in Manitoba that's owned by the Chinese. So we've recently done a deal with Piedmont Lithium. We're going to spin that into a new company. Sokoman and Benton will each own 4 million shares of Vinland, and Piedmont bought 2 million shares of Vinland for $2 million. So right now there's 10 million shares issued and outstanding in Vinland. Piedmont is a 20% holder, and Sokoman and Benton are 40% holders to hold 80% combined. And Piedmont has signed a deal where they will spend $12 million in exploration on the project to earn 67%, 67.5%. So ultimately, Vinland will own 32.5% of the deposit or the project, but it will have no expenditures for exploration. So this is a tremendous opportunity for our shareholders to gain value in our shareholdings in Vinland. And outside of that, Piedmont has to pay Benton and Sokoman $5 million in cash or Piedmont stock over the course of the option, which the first $1 million payment was made about a week ago. So again, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our shareholders, and we do keep a 2% royalty split between Sokoman and Benton, so 1% each. So how can most lithium companies don't have an end game. You find a lithium deposit, then what do you do with it? There's no refineries in North America, and all the refineries, it has to go to China. And to build a concentrate, it's going to cost you a couple $100 million, a mill and a concentrator. So we have an end game. We have a partner that has the ability to do that. So all we need now is to outline a resource, and Piedmont will take care of the rest. They'll be able to build the mill. We'll have a refinery that will take the offtake. So I think the chance for Vinland is far better than pretty much any lithium project in Canada, which is outstanding.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the probably largest publicly traded lithium companies out there.
Certainly in the U.S., yes.
I also like to just ask people like yourself that here you've decided that you want to, in large part, not bet the full company because you guys have the lithium stuff and some other stuff, but your main focus here is copper. And I like to ask people who are sort of placing these bets why they like copper so much so that I can hear different perspectives on their general copper bull thesis. So Steve, what is it that gets you excited about copper when you think about the future of copper demand?
Well, look, copper is the only metal, in my opinion, that's crucial to keeping the world moving. I mean, lithium you could do without. Just about any metal. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not crucial to have lithium or nickel or any of the other metals. I just believe copper is more widely used than people even know. I mean, the electric motors, is loaded with copper. The wiring in your car is loaded in copper. The wiring in your house loaded in copper, right? I mean, it's just it's a metal that cannot be done without. It's not replaceable. Most other metals can be replaced at a certain cost. But copper is just one of the metals that it is a superconductor, and it's people just don't realize how much is needed in the copper space. You can't build anything without it, more or less.
Okay, well, so for shareholders or people who are sort of watching this and they're thinking, okay, Benton's interesting. Looking to 2024, what are the timelines or milestones that they should be watching out for?
Well, of course, we drilled 22 holes in 1 month. In the last month, we've released so far 8 of those drill holes. So we have another 14 yet to come. So they've all been submitted to the lab, I think, as of now. And of course, as we were drilling, we were putting 2 and 3 and 4 in at a time. So there'll be constant news flow right into January with drill results coming. And we suspect that, there will be a lot of great results coming just from the visuals, and we've released that in a press release. And then outside of that, of course, January, we'll reopen camp, start some geophysics, or be ready to start geophysics. Because of course, when we drill these deeper holes, if we miss, we'll want to do off hole. Sometimes these deposits shift in direction, by a few hundred meters. So we'll pulse those holes with DPM to look for the electromagnetic anomalies at depth, and then we'll target it with another drill hole. Let's hope we don't even have to do that. Let's hope we just keep continually hitting it as our model says, right now. So that's planned for February, be drilling in probably March. And then, then we'll wait for results. And then, of course, April we'll start summer, our spring exploration, including further soil geochem sampling. June we'll probably start trenching, mapping, structural mapping, follow up prospecting, and then hopefully a huge drill program will start early summer and move right into to the end of the year.
And I take it you're the type of CEO who's going to have your own boots on the ground. You're going to be getting your thumbs and your fingertips dirty, helping out with the exploration.
That's the only way we know. When we picked this project up, we signed the deal at the end of August. Myself and my brother went to the project the next day. A week later, we had literally, picked up loads of supplies with our trucks and trailers, and we physically built our camp, which are all, tents, and we've insulated them, and put gas stoves in them. We physically did that. We get our hands dirty. We built the floors, we built the frames, and then we started going in, looking at where we're going to strip. We bought a backhoe in, and we've already done several trenches. Myself and my brother. My brother has now agreed to join me as the project manager to advance this. He's one of the best prospectors in the world, in my opinion, and he's proven it multiple times. So we've got a great team, two awesome geologists, Steve House and Barry Sparks. Barry was mine geologist for the fluorspar mine in Newfoundland, so he's no stranger to taking a resource to production. So we've got a really great small team, but a really, really great team.
Well, Steve, you got me excited from hearing you talk about it, and I got to say, congratulations for the success you guys have had. It's been a pretty depressing year in the junior markets in 2023. You can almost count the number of stocks that people are talking about on one hand. It might take two, but your name's definitely a name that comes up where I know people in my circles, they say, have you seen those drill holes that Benton Resources has put out? So I congratulate you for that, and I think that this will be an unbelievably exciting story if you guys continue to deliver, because we're just not seeing grades like this in other places, and it's just really nice to see a story have success, especially in at a time where it seems like nobody else is really generating a ton of interest. So I congratulate you on that, on the success you've had so far, and I wish you guys to continue having that success as you continue your exploration.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And I anticipate we will have success. Just the system alone that we've seen and identified now over this 15 kilometers, it just needs to work. I mean, it needs consistent work and consistency and the compilation of the historical data. There's a really great database that we're putting together as one big package. I mean, all this is going to help us. We're excited to get this baby going.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.